All right, welcome back. We are COMP397, web game programming in the winter 2021 semester at Centennial, and it's week 2, part 3 of our broadcast. We just finished doing a character controller, and I'm going to quickly do a little TileSet in Blender, another one, and then bring that into Unity, and then that'll be it for your lab. Okay, so let's do that now, and let's get it going. First of all, I want to bring up Unity so we can see where we were last. So here's Unity. Just going to bring it up with Unity Hub. And it's going to bring up the last thing we were at. Now, notice it took me a long time to close things down, and I want to always make sure that things are working where I left them. So if you notice here, I have my cube, and if I scroll over to where it is, I'm looking over here, and I can move around and jump. Okay, that's where we were last time. And now what we're going to do is we're going to open up GitHub. Minecraft. We're going to open Minecraft. We're going to play Minecraft. No, we're going to use Blender to create another tile. So I want to review what we did last time with Blender. I'm going to go a little bit quicker than last time. So remember what we did with Blender. We had in Blender last time, we talked about the Blender interface being very similar and yet different than Unity, right? In that it's oriented differently. It's on the X, Y plane as opposed to the X, Z plane like Unity is. In Blender, Z is up. Let's get rid of our tile this time, our default cube, and add a new one. So I'm going to press Shift A. Again, you can get there by also using other ways of adding a mesh. And notice here that I've got a cube or a plane that is, if I look at the numeric transform by pressing the N key, you can see that it is 1 by 1 by 1, and I want to make it 8 by 8 on either side of the x-axis. So I want to multiply the scale, and I can do it here by 8. So I can say I want to make this 8, and I want to make this 8, and I want to make this 8. But Z8 doesn't really matter because there is no Z on a plane like this. And so I did it this time numerically here using the numeric transform as opposed to me scaling it out by hand or using some kind of S and then scale across both axes. On the right, I still want to select my default material, so just like I did last time. So I went to the Material tab. All right, that's better. Can you hear me now? Yeah, this is what happens sometimes. I'm using an RTX 3070 card, remember? And I'm using something called Nvidia Broadcast. And what Nvidia Broadcast does is it kind of takes away pops and clicks and fan noise and all that stuff from my mic. But sometimes in a random fashion, because I'm doing a lot, I got Unity going on and Blender, it crashes sometimes. So bear with me. If it happens again, let me know like you did, and I'll continue. So all I did was, like I said, I went into, if I undo, I went into the numeric transform, again, inside of here as in object mode, and I changed it to 888. That's what I did here, which makes it the dimensions of 16 by 16. And then I tabbed into edit mode, and in edit mode, what I did was I subdivided by pressing the W key. I pressed W key and subdivided. So let me just undo in edit mode the change I made. So I went into edit mode. So again, I'll undo. I went into edit mode and I pressed the W key to subdivide. And when I subdivided into 4 sections. But what I want to do is I want to change the subdivide to 7 like I did last time. So notice what I did is when I get 7, I get 4 even sections on the right and 4 even sections on the left. right? And then what I want to do is I want to press the W key and subdivide again, which will give me 16 sections on the right and 16 sections on the left, which will give me a nice even subdivision for all of my, my plane. So you should be pretty much with me. This is almost exactly what we did last time. So in Blender, have you been able to get here? Are you with me? Check mark for yes, you're with me, and X if you're way behind. And that was a weird thing. Sometimes it happens where I guess lose my thing. So I got like a couple of people with me. A couple of people dropped off. I know it's hard to keep up with everything, but there it is. Okay, about 4 people. Thank you guys for following along. Let's continue. So yeah, so Kevin, I divided 7 and then 1. All right. The reason why I did 7 is it made 4 little sections on the right, and then I divided it again, and then it cut everything in half again. That's what it did. That's why. Otherwise, if you try to do it another way, it wouldn't work properly. All right, so now that I got all these different divisions, I want to deselect all. So press A in edit mode to deselect. You can toggle this on and off. So it deselects everything. Next week, what we'll do is do more of a texturing here on this thing. I'm not going to put a texture, but it's not difficult at all. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to make some random tile, different than the last one. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to right click. First of all, I'm going to Control Tab and go into Face Select mode. You can also go up to Face Select mode on the top left corner over here, right? So I'm in Face Select mode. I'm going to kind of select my faces. I'm also going to use the C key, which is Circle Select. Circle Select allows me to select stuff a lot quicker, and I can make my patterns a lot quicker than if I was trying to do this on my own. So let's make it so it's kind of like a weird T-junction, this one, right? And I'll make it so that it kind of has a center area here, and I'll fix it up. Like this area here, I can press Escape and then just uncheck these 2 faces. So it's kind of a weird tile that looks like this. So a bit longer on this side, shorter on this side. If I want to make it even, I could. So make a passageway that's like, 2, which is like 2 meters. So I can kind of do one of these if I really want to make it exactly even, and just uncheck these ones. Again, it's up to you. This is kind of artistic, so and it can be kind of relaxing, and it can be kind of frustrating too. But I just want to check it so that the entire tile is completely symmetrical, like this. Okay, so symmetrical on this side, kind of more on this side than that side. But I want to give it so that there's only a corridor that's 2 on this side and 2 over here. But there's a bit of a room here, a room there. There's a bit of a room there and a room there. And that's it. That's my tile. Now you guys can make yours differently, but that's all I want to do to save time. And now what I want to do is, once I've got this, I want to, I want to extrude. So press the E key to extrude and then press Enter. Again, you can also search for extrude faces, is what you want to do. Extrude faces. And all I've done is I've replicated my geometry. So there's like, all my geometry has been duplicated now in the areas that I've selected and highlighted. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the G key to move, and then immediately the Z key to constrain myself across the Z axis, and then press the 2 key to select 2 meters. All right, so G, and then Z immediately, and then 2. G, Z, 2. Remember, my guy can jump 3 meters, so I can be able to jump on these things if I want to. If I wanted to make this taller so that my character controller cannot jump over it, then I'd make these taller. For now, I just want to experiment with these things and show you how they click together in Unity. All right, good. This is it. I've done my tile. I want to save my tile. But this time, I want to, instead of saving it the way I did last time, I want to export it as an FBF. XBF. FBX. I'll be okay. So I want to go to File, and I want to go to Export. Actually, back up. Wait. Let me go back into object mode first. Sorry, one more thing. Go back into object mode by clicking object mode. And what I want to do is, notice that right now the scale is 8 by 8 by 8. I want to apply the change I made to scale so that this is the default object size. So in order for me to apply changes, I press Control A. And Control A, right, I want to apply the object's transformations. And where it says all transforms, I want to apply all transforms to the object. Again, Control and A. And to search that, we would say apply all transforms, Control and A, right? Control A and apply all transforms. And if you notice, the scale becomes 1, 1, 1, which is what I want. I don't want it to scale up like we did in Unity. And this is the fix that I was talking about earlier. All right, let's export that now. So I'm going to say File. I want to go Export, and I want to export to FBX. So Filmbox, that's what it stands for, filmbox.fbx format. And I'm going to save this inside of my desktop, wherever I have my Centennial, inside COMP397, and inside Lesson 2A, inside of Assets, and then Models. And I'm going to change this so it says it's going to be tile2, because the second tile I've made, tile2.fbx. But on the right, before I save, we have additional properties. One of them is, do I really want a camera, a lamp, an armature, a mesh, another, an empty? All I want is a mesh, so I can select just the mesh on the right-hand side. So I can limit what I'm exporting. I'm also only going to select my selected object. So I don't want to select anything else, just the mesh, okay? I want to apply my transforms. This is important, to apply my transform. And it says bake my animation. There's nothing really to bake, but I'm going to leave it on. Armature, there's nothing to worry about. And geometry, it says smoothing normals only, export subdivision surfaces and loose edges and tangent space. I'm not going to touch this, but later on, we're going to modify these later, right? For now, these are the settings. So I'm going to say that when I export to FBX, I'm going to select my objects, only my selected object, which is this one, only the mesh, nothing else, because I don't want the camera and everything else, and export FBX. I'm pointing in the right folder. Let's see what happens. So if I go back to Unity then, and again, it's here, it's going to do its dance for a second, and it's so fast, it's got tile 2 in here now. Here's tile 2. Yours might be still importing, it's fine. But if I click on tile 2, notice that tile 2 actually has just a material and a plane inside of it. If I click on tile 2, if I click on the model, I can do the same thing I did last time in Unity. So I can go to Generate Colliders and also Generate UV Map, Light Maps UVs. And then I can press Apply. And what this does is it allows me to, here's my preview. This is what the model would look like, right? And what I can do is I can pull it into the world, the game world. And once I pull it into the game world, I can make it into a prefab. Let's do that. So pull it into the game world. Here's my model. You can see it's way smaller than the entire plane that I've created already, because I'm going to get rid of the rest of it. So this is what my model would look like, right? Here's my model. Notice that there's a little bit of Z fighting. So this little janky mess that's happening right now when I move my camera like this, the Z-axis, because the plane is sitting on top of the other plane, it's fighting to see which of the planes are going to show up for the camera. We don't need the other plane in a second, but I need to, for this tile, notice that this tile is like one object, right? Tile number 2 is not like the other tile that we had before. All it is a plane and a material. So that's just one, which is way better than exporting the actual blend tile itself. Let's rename this to tile 2. We already have tile 1, and that is inside of my resources prefabs. We have a tile. Let's rename this tile. We can rename it to tile 1. So there's tile 1, and we have tile 2, right? And tile 2 already has a mesh collider and everything going on with it. Let's pull tile 2 into our prefabs, just like so. And it says, would you like to create a new original prefab, or would you want a variant of this prefab? I want a new original one, so we'll keep the original model intact. So original prefab. And now I have tile 2. Tile 2 is just this. There's no lights. We can get rid of the tile 2 that's sitting inside of our scene. We can also get rid of this ground plane. So let's get rid of the ground plane. So ground, bye-bye. I don't need the ground anymore, or my cube. That was just for, demonstration purposes. What I want now is I want to put the tile 1 back in there. There's tile 1. And I also want to put tile 2 in there. But I want tile 2 to be on the same level as tile 1. And you can see where it's at. So on the y-axis, you can put it at 0. Right? On the z-axis, right, we want to do, and this tile here, tile 1, on the y-axis, we also want to put that at 0. So now they're on the same area. You can see that there's two tiles approximately the same size, and I want to snap them together. So the way to do that is I can take tile 2, and I can press the V key when I go to the edge of the tile, like this, V key. So I go here and I press the V key. This is called Vertex Snapping, and I can pull this in and it snaps right into place, right? But we want to check to see that the numbers are lined up, because right now it's snapping into place from here and here, but it looks like I've got a weird number of 9.5 on the y-axis, which should be 0. But the z-axis remains at 16. So every 16 tiles is, or 16 units, is where this one goes. Look, notice that the right tile, which is the one that I adjusted, that I applied the changes, it doesn't have any rotations to it. Whereas the original one with the blend file, it had a rotation of -90 plus a scale of 888. It's always better to apply all the transformations in Blender before we bring it into Unity. And that's the lesson I wanted to show you today. All right, let's get both of these tiles. Let's duplicate them a little bit, and we'll add more tiles in here so that we can make a scene where the player can walk around a little bit. Just let's say 2 tiles here and 2 tiles here, and we're done. So to do that, I'm going to duplicate tile 2. So in the hierarchy, I can press Control D and duplicate the tile. Now I have one tile on top of the other one. And like I did before, what I want to do is I want to use V-snapping to snap it into place. So first I want to move it where it's supposed to go, like over here is where I want to move it. And then let's just use V-snapping. So press the V key and then snap it in as much as possible. And if it doesn't snap in, that's okay. We can always adjust it. So on the y-axis, it's going to be 0, right? And on the z-axis, right now, you see it's 1. If I make it 0, it's exactly where it's supposed to be. So -16, y is 0, and z is 0. Okay, so that's exactly where it's supposed to be. But V-snapping, what it does, it helps us position it somewhat well. All right. Notice also that in Blender, in Unity, in a hierarchy, it went tile 2 and then in brackets 1, which means a second instance of tile 2. Let's do another instance of tile 1. So Control D, and we'll make another instance of tile 1, and this time we'll bring it over here, and we'll do some V-snapping, just like we did before, by pressing the V key on a corner and bring it in as much as possible. And if it doesn't snap properly, that's okay. Right, we can do it a couple places. Again, what we want to watch for is these variants. So on the y-axis should be 0. And this is still -90, which is okay. All right, so that is our little maze. We've got some repeating areas there. And you know what? I think we should probably stop there because of time. But we could continue to add more tiles if you want to. You can do what you want in there. Let's test it and see if if it's walkable from my player. And the way to test where my player is, we click on my player. They're there. Let's pull them into an area where there's no, I don't want any tiles involved. So they're not overlapping anywhere. They're literally inside of my maze. And let's play it. Let's see what happens. All right, cool. So let's press into the maze, and we should be able to see something that looks like this. So it's a kind of a hedge maze more than anything else. It's not really a maze where the walls are too high. It's only 2 meters tall. It's just at the top of my head. I can look over the maze, but I can now walk around the maze and be able to navigate around the tiles in a kind of a semi-janky way. But it kind of allows me to move around, and I can see that it's much better than than just using a regular tile. If I want to jump, I can jump on top of the maze. That's totally doable, and I'll fall when I land off the maze. So that's kind of where it is. The shadows are really dark. That's one thing that's really a problem. And there really isn't much definition for some of the things that we're seeing. But this is kind of our first step, our first world into bringing in some assets from Blender and creating a little character controller that's from scratch. All right, that is your lab 2. So I'm going to just escape from here. I'm going to save it. And all I've done, just to reiterate here, is you want to take a snapshot of this. Just take a snapshot of this. And maybe what you want to do is also take a snapshot or a screenshot of when your character is physically in the maze. So when I'm playing, maybe you want to take a snapshot of kind of this, where I'm kind of in the maze here like as well. And just to show me that you've tried this out. So you can take a screenshot here and a screenshot when we're in the editor, when we're here, and you can see what this looks like. And it looks kind of random, but it really isn't. It's just putting two tiles together. So it looks like a random maze, but actually we just reused two tiles, and we haven't even rotated them or anything yet. We're just putting them together. We can build upon this. We've got the second tile, and every week if we build a tile in Blender, we'll get used to using Blender, and we'll start doing something more procedurally generated, where I randomly place the tiles across a large mosaic of area. And again, your game isn't really a maze game. I'm making these tiles to basically facilitate what it's like to make it in Blender. But we can make other tile sets, and we're going to make more tiles. We're going to start with Blender next week, as opposed to with Unity, because now we have a character controller. We can do a lot with it. Again, a little bit janky still. There's still some things we can smooth out in a controller. And like I said, if we really want to get awesome, we can always download an asset from the asset store, and we're going to get there eventually. All right, question around the extra tile that we did. Let's save this, and we'll save the scene, and we'll save the project, and this is it for us for today. So there's no more to be done. This is lab 2. This is what you're going to hand in. Put this up on GitHub, take a couple of screenshots, and you're good to go. So let's close this off. And then we're going to go back into GitKraken when it's closed. We can close off Blender too, because we don't need it. We don't have to save it because it's been saved as an FBX, so we're good. And we're going to go back into GitKraken, and you can see that there's a few changes, 7 file changes that were made. We're going to go view the changes. We're going to stage all changes, and we're going to say added second tile to the maze, right, kind of thing. And then we're going to say commit changes to 7 files. And we're going to push this onto GitHub. So you have an example of my stuff on GitHub that you can certainly use to compare your stuff with my stuff. What I don't want is for you to hand me back exactly what I've given you. I want you to make some variation. Change your tile in Blender. Take a look at what that looks like. How do I make it different? How do I change the position of my scene? Maybe I want to make my character controller slightly different or whatever. It's up to you. But these extra little things here, it's the same thing, friends, every single time. Lab 2 is going to be a snapshot of the scene, snapshot of the game, and then give me a link to your GitHub and you're good to go. That's it. Every single time we do a lab, we're going to be the same. Labs are nice and easy to do and straightforward. Follow me with what I'm doing and then hand it in. It's proving that you're attending and proving that you're trying to do stuff in Unity. That's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for like super high tech, coding or whatever, although that anything extra is cool. But at least it shows me that you've been here and you've tried to do something, which is what I'm looking for. All right, so that's it for the lab. I just wanted to, I can close this down now. I'm gonna talk about the last part to this whole thing. So I promised you I would do this. I talked about assignment 1 part 1, and then we did this, which we talked about specialty roles. But I didn't do this. I didn't talk about assignment 1 part 2, which is due on week 4. So I'm just going to briefly talk about this and then we're done for the day. All right, so let's bring in that document. And again, this document, this assignment 1 part 2 is a group assignment. It's part 2 of a 3-part assignment that this is due. This one is worth more. It's worth 10%. Why? Because you're actually going to add some code to the game. And I'm going to get you there next week and the week after. I'm going to get you there so you have everything you need to do well for part 2, right? So again, if you follow me every week, slowly, we'll build parts of your game. Part of it I'll show you. Part of it you'll have to do on your own. And then you're good to go. So what do I need from here? I want, again, depending on the target platform is WebGL. In this part, you'll complete the following tasks. So every part, I give you some tasks to complete. So this one, you're going to add logic to some UI elements. Okay, so the menu screen, the gameplay screen, menu screen, all features except the load game options are going to be there. I'll show you how to do that. Gameplay screen, the game should be playable and the main mechanics should be functional. So right now, I've given you a part of this already, right? Because I've given you a character that's somewhat playable. Okay. Your game overview screen, we don't have game over screen. We don't have. A player should be able to control their avatar through a fully functional character controller. Guys, we just did this today. So I've kind of done some of this. Enemy AI sensing suite will be functional. So that's tall order. We're going to have to put that together with some AI enemies, right? Pausing the game will be operational. So how do I pause the game? Think about it in terms of my, if I want to pause the game, I want to pause all game objects. That's what I want to do. And I want to basically say that I want to stop game objects from updating. That's what I want when I pause the game. Some game objects are going to continue to update. Other ones are going to stop. So things like my player, my enemies, all those things are going to stop updating. They're going to still draw, but no updating is going to happen while we're in pause state. I want to show the game as paused, and it's going to be a user interface that we're going to see. So this is something we're going to do. Sound effects should work throughout the game. Music, and again, this is blocking some stuff out, very, very high level. I don't expect all the final things to work at this state. It's just enough for some of this to work. Remember, we're going to continue to iterate on this game throughout the entire semester. So this is not the last time we're going to look at this thing, right? Sound effects should work. Music and soundtrack should be enabled for each screen. You're going to create a second draft of your game design document because you're going to take screenshots. That's what I want you to do with your game design document. You're going to update your GitHub repository for your game, and you're going to update your project management tool to continue to track your game's progress. So that's really your tasks that you're going to make. So now when it comes to your deliverables, task 1, your common requirements. And I go through here and explain the logic that you're going to add to your game, to your menu screen. Your option screen will display audio options, music volume, sound volume, control options, key mapping options, inverted y-axis, and key mapping options are going to be there. Write code to enable these features. All right. Again, some of this I'll cover with you. Some of this you'll figure out by yourself to some degree because you need to get into the coding piece, right? Gameplay screen. This is where the main game occurs. Your 3D game will include one polished game level, and the game state will encompass the game world and host all the game. And I talk about, take a look at your requirements below. So this is kind of informational. Game over screen should function to some degree because there's nothing there. It just allows you to start over. The player will control an avatar, which we've already kind of done, with appropriate animation if you wanted to do third-person perspective. Third-person perspective requires a bit more animation than this. And your game must include an inventory system. We'll develop that together. This feature will remain a placeholder, again, for this release and will not be functional. So there's certain things that aren't going to work, and there's certain things that I'm going to flag as functional. Again, health system, not functional at this point because, again, we don't have enough time to put all this together in 2 weeks, right? Minimap, the minimap should appear in the player's canvas, but is not required to function at this time. So no functionality for the minimap by week 4. It doesn't make any sense. But this, your game will include enemies with the AI behavior detailed above. That should work. And we're going to focus on AI next. Not next week probably, but closer to the week after. If I can get started on AI next week, it'd be great for us. And then you'll have most of what you need. Loading and saving won't work, but pausing will work. That's not too difficult to pull off. And your game will include sound effects and soundtracks, no problem. If you're a 3D platformer, all 3D platforms should be enabled at this point and allow the player to navigate the level. So in other words, what I want you to do is a little bit of level design. So you get some assets or you make them in Blender. You can get assets from the asset store as well. If you look for 3D platforms on the asset store, there's some free assets. I don't want you to spend any money. Guys, please don't spend any money. And then you put the assets inside your level. You lay them out as you normally would, a bit of game design. And then you can put the hazards in place, but it says for the platformer, they're not going to be functional. And the goal is going to exist, but will not allow the player to complete the game. Because again, these are all little functionalities we're going to go on. And I've added additional things for the isometric tower defense option if you chose to do that, or the sandbox crafting survival game if you choose to do this. Again, these options are advanced options for interactive gaming students that want to challenge themselves. If you don't want to challenge yourself, I'm perfectly fine with the platform runner shooter example that we're going to detail more in the game, in the class. Your game design document has a little bit of update, and I talk about where I want the updates. More or less, what I want is your MDA, your mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics. You would have learned something by doing these some coding over the last 2 weeks, and this may have changed a little bit. And some screen captures. I want some screen captures of your screens because you finally have screens to capture. Before you had nothing. You had just wireframes. You just were thinking, you were planning. Now you may have some, right, at this stage. And then internal documentation, there's going to be some information associated with your game, right? And again, I talked about this. You can put code, or in the little lab that I gave you today, you know how to make a script now. So you can attach an empty script that doesn't do anything with just your header to satisfy the requirements of assignment 1 part 1. So that way you can say, okay, here's me and here's my partners inside the script. And that just kind of proves that it's you. Version control as normal, and then your demo video as normal. Okay, so nothing that's really out of the ordinary in terms of what you make. Okay, so that is assignment 1 part 2. Not everything is functional at this point, but there's more logic involved in this iteration. All right, questions around assignment 1 part 2. Some of it's going to be working, mostly the start screen and the end scene. There's also going to be some things that are hooked up, but for the most part, you're just going to have character movement, which we've already done, and AI. So with the enemies would chase you kind of stuff, and we're going to do that together. It's not that difficult to do. So any questions around this before we stop for the day? All right, so that's your assignment 1 part 2. And just to go over, we've kind of hit all the highlights for this week. So just to revisit this week, what we did was we talked about assignment 1 part 1 when it's due, and I went over the details of that. Assignment 1 part 2 when it's due, which is due week 4, 2 weeks from now. We talked about specialty roles, and I also went into lab 2. We covered all this stuff in terms of some of it was in the PowerPoint, some of it we actually did physically inside of our Unity project. And just remember, next week we're going to be talking about lights and shadows, and we're going to actually be deploying to WebGL for the first time. We haven't really done that, and that's going to be part of Lab 3. All this stuff is going to really be part of Lab 3. I'm going to also try and set up some additional scenes, which we'll do next week as well. So maybe I'll put that in there. I'll say that simple scene management is what we're going to put in as well, just to make sure we don't forget. Couple things to note, a couple of administrative items before we leave. One thing is, if you haven't had a chance to join Discord, please join us on Discord. I think it's great for us to be able to connect on Discord as a community and talk to each other. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, you have the Discord link. Please connect through there. If you haven't had a chance to find a partner, you still have some days left to find a partner before our project is due on Friday. So please don't hesitate to find a partner as soon as possible. I think that's important. At least one partner. I recommend at least, you can even do 2. Teams of 3 is a good size to do. Anything less than 3, I think you're going to be challenging yourself. Even with 2 people in the team, I think it's too much for all the stuff that you're required to do. Okay. And that's really it. Any questions before we end for the day? Guys, the people that stayed on, thank you so much. I really do appreciate the fact that you were there. It's always great to have an audience and to be able to help people and to respond to their questions. I really appreciate all the effort that you guys have made to come out today. And hopefully you got something out of this, so that you can continue to learn game development as we go forward from one week to the next. Otherwise, for me, guys, thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next week. And for those people who are watching on YouTube, everything's been recorded. It's online if you look at eCentennial. And for the people that are going to join me on Friday, if you have any questions, I'm going to do another live session, not recorded, on Friday afternoon from 1:30 to 4:30. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Take care.